have schizophrenia, and I truly believed that when my sister-in-law moved into our house, she started trying to drive me insane. She started whispering around me, and whenever I asked her what she said, she would pretend to look worried and tell me nothing. The reason I believed this was because the voices only happened around her. Before she moved in, I hadn't experienced anything like this in a very long time. It took months of her supposedly whispering around me before I had my first breakdown. During it, I lay silently crying in bed, repeating to myself, "It's just her. I'm not insane." But then, only a few weeks later, I had another breakdown. That was when I finally told my wife, Clara. When I told her, she looked worried, not because she thought her sister might actually be doing this, but because of what she believed might be happening to me mentally. She kept reassuring me that Nadia would never intentionally hurt me. But Clara's reassurance didn't calm me down. If anything, it made me even more uneasy. The whispers I heard whenever Nadia was nearby felt too natural and too frequent to ignore. Watching her more closely, I noticed how she often muttered quietly to herself when she thought nobody was paying attention. I noticed how she would linger in doorways, lost in thought for long periods of time. I started paying attention to every sound inside the house, trying desperately to catch a clear phrase or sentence from Nadia that would finally prove I wasn't imagining things. But the harder I listened, the less I understood. I could only hear fragmented whispers that never fully made sense. As time passed, Clara became increasingly frustrated with me. She saw how withdrawn and obsessed I had become over proving Nadia was whispering to me intentionally. Months went by, and even though I was taking my medication correctly and seeing my psychiatrist regularly, the whispers I believed were coming from Nadia never stopped. My doctor adjusted my medication several times in an attempt to reduce what he diagnosed as auditory hallucinations, but none of the changes worked. Every new prescription gave me a brief feeling of hope, only for it to disappear once the murmurs returned. The more I heard them, the more I analyzed Nadia's every movement, every whisper, every glance she gave me. To me, every subtle behavior felt like confirmation that she was intentionally trying to destroy my mental stability. I became convinced she was whispering just quietly enough for me to hear, but never clearly enough for me to confront her directly. I could feel Clara watching my condition worsen day by day. At first, she dismissed my accusations as symptoms of my illness because she trusted her sister completely. But as my fixation on Nadia's whispers intensified, the tension inside our home grew worse and worse. Clara was caught in an impossible situation, torn between loyalty to her sister and her desire to support me. Then one evening, everything escalated. I was walking down the hallway when I heard it again. A whisper, but this time it was clearer than ever before. It was unmistakably Nadia's voice. A low, sinister murmur, just loud enough for me to hear. My heart immediately started pounding as I rushed toward the kitchen. When I rounded the corner, I found Nadia standing there with a glass of water in her hand, acting completely unaware of my presence. At that point, I had reached my limit. I couldn't hold myself back anymore. I shouted at her. I demanded that she stop pretending and finally admit she had been whispering to me this entire time. Then I asked her why she was doing it and what she could possibly gain from it. Nadia acted confused and claimed she had no idea what I was talking about. Then she started crying. She ran out of the house sobbing. I immediately knew she was probably going to call Clara, and panic hit me. Clara hated receiving emotional phone calls while she was at work, and I could only imagine how angry she would be. After hearing about our confrontation, Nadia didn't return home until Clara arrived later that evening. The moment I heard Clara's car pull into the driveway, my heartbeat sped up. If Nadia was willing to lie about the whispers, what else might she lie about? Clara walked inside looking emotionally exhausted. She told me she was struggling to understand everything that had been happening. I immediately tried explaining my side of the story, but she stopped me and asked me to let her finish speaking first. She said it broke her heart seeing me suffer, but it was equally painful hearing such serious accusations directed at her sister. As I tried again to explain the truth, Clara told me she didn't want us to lose our marriage over something that might simply be my illness misleading us both. Throughout the conversation, Nadia stood behind Clara crying quietly and nodding along with everything she said. Watching that filled me with disbelief. I couldn't understand how far Nadia was willing to take the lie. What was the point of all this? Why was she doing this to me? At that moment, I realized that if I kept arguing, my anger would take control, and Clara wouldn't truly hear me, so I stayed quiet. The following day, after calming down, I tried once again to speak to Clara about Nadia. I explained how deeply the whispers were affecting me, mentally and emotionally. Clara listened carefully, but ultimately, she decided that my situation had become too serious for us to handle alone. She suggested I needed more specialized psychiatric treatment than what could be provided at home. The thought of being admitted into a psychiatric ward terrified me. It felt like she was giving up on me completely. I didn't want to go. When I tried expressing that, it turned into another major argument between us. Neither of us was willing to back down. Eventually, instead of continuing the fight, I became quiet again. But this time, I decided I needed another way to prove what was happening. I came up with a plan. If Clara could simply witness some of Nadia's strange behavior herself, maybe she would finally understand why I had become so disturbed. Over the following days, I paid even closer attention to Nadia whenever she was around. Most of the time, she seemed completely normal, but occasionally she would do strange little things. Sometimes she whispered quietly to herself. Sometimes she stopped suddenly in the middle of doing something, as if she were listening to voices no one else could hear. Whenever Nadia acted strangely, I tried making sure Clara was nearby to witness it too. I never directly pointed anything out. I simply hoped Clara would start noticing these behaviors on her own. My intention wasn't to spy on Nadia or scare Clara. I only wanted Clara to understand why I had become so deeply disturbed by the whispers. Eventually, Clara started paying closer attention. She began noticing more of the strange behaviors I had been talking about. Nadia's muttering and sudden pauses became increasingly difficult to ignore. I could see Clara's skepticism slowly fading. For the first time, she started believing that something unusual might actually be happening. Seeing this shift gave me hope, so I decided to go further. I started secretly recording Nadia on my phone whenever she behaved strangely. I captured videos of her quietly speaking to herself, pausing in the middle of tasks as if listening to something invisible, and silently moving her lips without making a sound. Then one evening, after an especially stressful day, I went into the bathroom hoping to calm myself down. The whispers had been relentless since I got home. Without realizing it, I left my phone recording on the bathroom counter. As I sat there trying to collect my thoughts, the whispers started again. My heart immediately began racing. It sounded like Nadia was standing directly outside the bathroom door, whispering at me. I tried desperately to focus and make out specific words, but once again, everything sounded distorted and unclear. Then suddenly, after several minutes, the whispers stopped. I walked out of the bathroom, picked up my phone, and ended the recording without thinking much about it. Later that night, out of desperation for proof, I replayed the video, and what I heard changed everything. In the recording, I could clearly hear the bathroom door creaking softly. Then the whispers started again. This time, they were unmistakable. It was Nadia's voice. She had been whispering directly outside the bathroom door. My entire body went cold. I replayed the recording again and again just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. But there was no doubt anymore. I finally had proof. The realization hit me hard. I wasn't losing my mind. Someone had intentionally been trying to make me believe I was. Now that I finally had evidence, I felt hopeful for the first time in months. I believed this proof would finally show Clara, and even my psychiatrist, that what I had been experiencing was real all along.